Hey there. Are you okay? Are you doing all right? I mean, I'm not trying to intrude or anything. I like to think of myself as a helpful individual, and it just kind of seems like maybe you're struggling a little bit with that. Yeah, no, it's no big deal. I mean, we all struggle from time to time, right? Yeah, I mean, it's just you're not really doing that correctly. Like I said, I'm not trying to make fun of you or anything. Um, I'd be more than happy to show you how to do it if you'd like me to. It is a little complicated, I suppose. Yeah, no, it's no big deal. Yeah, I'll just. All right. It's a tape measure. It looks like you're trying to measure something. Um, it can be kind of tricky. Don't get me wrong, but that's what I'm here for. I got time. I got all the time in the world just for you. All right. I'm gonna explain to you how to use this tape measure. So, I guess first things first, you gotta pick it up, right? And that's pretty tricky. Honestly, we can't even get robots to pick things up, let alone people. So I mean, I'm doing it right now, but that's because I'm a trained professional. So I've gotten pretty good at it at this point. Picking things up is kind of my specialty. But anyway, I understand that not everyone is in the same boat. So let me just explain it to you. Okay, it's fairly simple. Okay, okay. See, I feel like I'm already getting too advanced by like switching hands and everything. We'll get there. I mean, well, you'll get there on your own probably eventually. That I think that's outside the scope of this course that I'm about to give you. But either way, let's get into it. All right. So imagine this is sitting somewhere. We'll put it right here for now, on top of your head, I guess. Although, well, this is your head, so. I don't know what this is. This is something, and that's where I'm going to put it for now, just so that it's not in my hands, okay? So that you can, it's more of like one-to-one. I can teach you how to pick it up off of any surface, and I guess that's an important, like, fact, aspect to point out is that picking it up off of any surface is going to be pretty much the same. There might be a few surfaces, like if it was in a pit of slime or something, where it might be a little bit different, but in terms of like most surfaces that you will come across in your life, it's going to be pretty much the same. So imagine it's sitting there, right? It's sitting there. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take one of your hands. Now, you're probably, I imagine, unless you're ambidextrous, which is possible, either way, I imagine you are dominant with one hand. Most people are dominant with their right hand, but some people are dominant with their left hand. Now, you don't have to necessarily use your dominant hand. I'm dominant with my right hand, but I can still pick it up with my left hand. Now, I know I did that quickly, so let me back it up. I mean, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Anyway, we'll put it back. All right, so the tape measure is here. Let's pick it up. All right, so I'm going to use my right hand for the demonstration because I am right hand dominant, but like I said, you can use any hand. It's not important, okay? Just as long as you have a hand. If you don't have hands, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be ableist or anything. You probably still could pick it up with like your nubs. It would probably work. You probably wouldn't be able to use the tape measure super effectively, but at least you could pick it up. We won't get into that though, because I can tell that you have both of your hands, so it's not a big deal. Anyway, I feel like I'm stalling, I'm not trying to stall. Trust me. I'm just trying to make it as thorough as possible, because I could tell you were having like a lot of trouble. Like it was just sitting there and you were like looking at it all weird. So I'm just trying to help. Okay, that's all I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to use my right hand because I'm right hand dominant. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to analyze the situation, right? It might be sitting on something like this. This is going to be hard to do. This is going to be hard to demonstrate. It's unlikely that you would come across it like this, but it is well within the realm of possibilities. Now, you may come across it like this, or you may come across it like this. Those are basically the only two orientations that it would ever be found in. I suppose there's probably some balance point on like a diagonal, but that's ultra rare, right? So we won't get into that. But we're just going to go with this orientation just because it's the most likely. You saw how much trouble I had trying to balance it. So most of the time it's going to fall over if anyone even tries to place it like that. So most of the time you come across it, it's going to be like this. So you're going to look at it, right? And you're going to notice the orientation. If it's like this, well then picking it up is fairly straightforward, if not, I mean, a little bit complicated, I suppose, but the steps are simple. You just have to do them in the right order. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the hand that you're picking it up with. You could technically use both at the same time, but it's a little unnecessary for something this size. Generally, you would do that with something larger, like a car or a refrigerator. We're not picking up a car or a refrigerator right now, so you don't have to worry about that. I would just stick with one hand. It also simplifies the process a little bit because you only have one hand to deal with. When you get two moving parts, it becomes really complicated. But like I said, I'm a professional, so I'm at that level, but you might not be. It's not a big deal. Anyway, let's get into it. So we're looking at the orientation. Now, there's a few things you can do here. I mean, you have a lot of options, but I'll just kind of run through the most common way that I would personally do it. And this is the way that probably a lot of people would choose to do it. But like I said, there's a plethora of options here. Now, what you're going to want to do, you'll notice that your hand, it has fingers and a thumb, which I feel like technically falls within the definition of a finger, but some people might not consider it a finger because, it's called the thumb. It's like you have your index finger, your middle finger, ring finger, pinky finger. But the thumb isn't called the thumb finger. It's called the thumb. So maybe some people don't call it the thumb. I'm not trying to confuse you anymore. I'm just trying to be as thorough in my explanation as possible. Some people might not consider the thumb a finger, but either way, you have 5 what I would consider fingers. I consider the thumb a finger. So you have 5 fingers, all right? 4 fingers, 1 thumb. That's also a finger. Again, I'm not trying to complicate it. I'm just trying to, help you understand it. Hopefully, I'm doing a good job. Anyway, you got 5 fingers. And then your palm, right? But the palm isn't really going to come into play here too much. So what you're going to want to do is you'll notice that you can bend these fingers. They can kind of like move in all kinds of ways. I'm sure you've experienced that before. It seems like you've been alive for at least, a few years. So I'm sure that you've figured that out by this point. But either way, if you haven't, then there you go. The fingers move. You can move your fingers. And what you're going to want to do is you can use this motion, right? You can use that motion to pick things up. It's pretty crazy. Once you've mastered, once you kind of get the hang of it, you can just start picking up pretty much anything. Like I said, cars, houses, buildings, it doesn't matter. You can pick up anything. So it's a pretty cool skill to have. But like I said, it does take a little while to master it, but it's not a big deal. You got to start somewhere, and today we're starting with a tape measure, so that's what we're going to do. Like I said, you have a plethora of options here, right? So, I mean, you can do all sorts of different combinations of fingers. You could use your index, your pinky, and your thumb if you really wanted to. It would be like Spider-Man or something, and you could pick it up that way. You could use just your thumb and index finger and pick it up that way. But what you'll notice is with most objects, most objects have a center of mass. That's the point at which all the mass of that object is, I can't explain it. All you need to know is that you need to make sure that you're balancing it. Most often with most objects, the center of mass is generally close to just the center of the object. So in this case, you'll want to make sure that you are grabbing it in a symmetrical fashion, meaning that you'll want at least one finger to be on the other side of another finger. That way that you can pick it up more I can't think of the word, but you'll pick it up more often. So for instance, I'm going to pick it up incorrectly. If I pick it up, and I will be able to pull this off, hopefully. I don't know, I haven't tried it too many times. But just because I can do it doesn't mean that it's the correct way to do it, right? But anyway, if I try to pick it up like that, my fingers aren't going through the center. If you were to draw a line between my fingers, they're not going through the center. This is not a good way to pick it up because I have to hold it weird just to make sure it stays in my hand because I don't have a good grip on it. Whereas if I pick it up with my fingers going through the center. If you draw a line from finger to finger, and it's going through the center, I have a really good grip. I can do whatever I want with this. I definitely couldn't have done that before without it, flying out of my hands and making a really loud sound that would ruin this video. So that's why I didn't do it. But anyway, so that's the general idea, right? So to pick it up, you're just going to want to, like I said, you can use as many fingers, as few fingers. Well, you're typically going to need to use at least 2 fingers. I mean, you could maybe, unless you've got like glue on your fingers, but that, again, that complicates things, and that's getting outside the scope of this video, so we won't get into that. But anyway, you have your fingers, you're going to want to use at least 2 of them, and then you're going to pick it up. So now you have it in your hand, and you can manipulate it however you want. So long as you keep a good grip on it, you should be good. And to keep a grip on something, it's pretty simple. What you're going to want to do is, like, you'll notice your fingers that move, they have muscles and tendons, and those muscles and tendons, they control those fingers. And what you're going to want to do is imagine that the object is smaller than it is. So you want to try to like make your hand fit a smaller object than the one that you're holding. And what that's going to do is it's going to tighten your grip on that object, and so you don't lose your grasp on it, right? But that's the idea of holding something. And like I said, you can manipulate it. You can flip it around your fingers. Wow, and that made a loud noise, so I'm sorry about that. I'll have to edit that out. But anyway, so we've got it in our hands. But you're trying to measure something. You're not just trying to pick it up, right? This was only phase 1, and we have so many more phases to go. Well, at least one more phase. That's the measuring phase. You'll notice if I put this up to your face, right up to your face. You see that? You son of a bitch. I'm sorry. That was me. I shouldn't have said that. Do you see the tab? The little metal tab? This is FedEx. FedEx sponsored this video. That's not true at all. I don't know if I can get in trouble for saying that. They didn't. It just happens to be a FedEx tape measure. Anyway, you notice the tab, this little metal tab? You see that little metal tab? That is the tape. That's the start of the tape anyway. That's how you pull out the tape and then measure something, because on the tape is the measuring increments, right? In this case, it's inches, but it might be centimeters, it might be feet, it might be meters, it might be kilometers, it could be light years. I mean, depending on the size of the tape measure, it could be all sorts of different things. But anyway, you see the tab? The tab is very important. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull the tab. So in order to do that, you're going to want to make sure that you're not holding it in a way that you're blocking the tab. So like this, see, like this, like I'm blocking the tab. The tab's right there, but it's like against my finger. So like I can't possibly use the tape measure like this. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. There's just absolutely no way that I would ever be able to get the tape measure out and then like use it to measure something. It's just not going to happen. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you're holding it in a way where the tab is facing outwards or in some orientation that you can get to the tab, because getting to the tab is very important. Let me just adjust my camera because I feel like it's maybe getting darker outside. I don't know. It's overcast, okay? It's not super bright. Anyway, you're holding it with one hand. Now, earlier I said that you could technically pick it up with 2 hands. At this point, you're going to want to be holding it in one hand, because if you're holding it in 2 hands, then you're not going to have another hand to use the tape measure, right? You don't have 3 hands. And unless you have a friend, then you're not going to be able to use the tape measure if you're holding it with 2 hands. Maybe you have a friend. If you do, that's great. I feel really happy for you. And they can help you out a lot with this. That'll help simplify it, because now you can both only focus on one task rather than doing both of them yourself, which is infinitely more difficult. But unfortunately for you, it looks like I don't see any friends. Sorry. So you're going to have to do it yourself. Anyway, so you see the tab. You're holding it in one hand. Now with your other hand, you're going to want to use those fingers I told you about, and you're going to want to grab this tab. You're going to do it in pretty much the same exact way that you picked up the tape measure off the table, except this is just infinitely smaller, right? Infinitely, yes. It's microscopic. No, it's not microscopic. You can see it right there. It's right there. You see it? Do you see it? I showed it to your face. I put it up into your face and I called you a son of a bitch. But that was mean, so I took that back. So just disregard that. Anyway, the tab is right there. You're going to want to grab it. You're going to want to grab it with probably your index finger and your thumb. But you can do it however you want. I can use my ring finger, my middle finger, my pinky finger, my thumb, maybe even my Nope, that doesn't really work. So you're probably going to want to use your thumb and one of your other fingers. And generally for me, I use my index finger just because it's the most dexterous of all the fingers. So anyway, you're going to want to grab the tab, and what you're going to want to do at that point is you're going to want to try to pull your hands apart, right? It might be a little tough depending on how strong you are, because there's going to be a little bit of resistance, right? A little bit of resistance from the tape measure. But if you grab them and you grab them both tight, you grab them both really tight, and then you pull, wow, look at that. The tape measure comes out, and look at that, it's got inches on it. So now you can measure something. Wow. And then all you have to do to measure something is just put the tape measure up to that thing and then look at how many inches it is. You just count the inches. I hope you can count. Because if you can't count and you can't read, then I will have taught you this for nothing. And that will feel really bad for me personally, because then I will have just wasted my time. And I don't really like wasting my time. So hopefully you know how to read and count, because those are vitally important when using a tape measure. But anyway, yeah, that's really all there is to it. You just hold it up, and then you measure that thing, whatever it may be. It could be a rat. Maybe you've got a pet rat, and you want to see how long he is from the end of his tail to the tip of his little nose. You could measure it with this tape measure using the method I've described. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, well, great, Connor. You told me exactly how to pull it out and measure something, but now what do I do? Now I've just got this tape measure out. Well, see, that's the great thing about the tape measure manufacturers. They thought of everything, right? I guess they figured that people like you probably exist, and so they made it really easy to put it away. So all you're going to want to do is just put your hands back together. That's really all there is to it. Now, sometimes it might get stuck. See, I'm not holding it with the other hand, but it's still out. It's not going back in. That's a really big bummer. But what you can do to fix that is, on one side of the tape measure is this button. There's a button on the other side of this tape measure. You see the button? See, on this side it's a larger white circle, and on this side it's a smaller white circle. The smaller white circle is important. Now, not every single tape measure will look like this, most likely, but most of them will function in the same way, where one side has a button. All you got to do is look at it and use your brain to figure out which side is the button and which side is not the button. I would hope that it's a little obvious, at least. Anyway, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to press that button. And again, to press something, all you want to do is imagine that the thing you're holding is smaller than it is, and then try to hold that smaller thing. What you're going to want to, what that ends up doing is you push against it harder than you really need to. And so in this case, you're going to press that button. When you press the button, okay, it closed. It closed. That's all you need to know. Listen, okay, you don't need to fully understand something in order to do it, right? Like, sometimes you just get lucky. Sometimes you just get lucky and things work out. That's a best case scenario right there. That's like all you can hope for. But anyway, I hope this was helpful, because like I said, I'm really going out of my way. And if it didn't end up being helpful, then that would really be a bummer. But I guess it's kind of out of my control at this point. It's up to you. You have to go on. So I'll give you the tape measure back, and good luck measuring whatever it was you were trying to measure. What was it? Was it a rat?